Hello everybody, welcome back to the spinning barn on what must be the hottest day of the year so far, and the day that I decided to sort some fleeces. Now, I don't know if you can see all around. If my glamorous assistant would like to just show what we've got here. I must have about 60 fleeces here at the moment, and not all from mine. But I got to the end of the process of sorting, got to my very last North Ronaldsay fleece and thought I really should have shown you what I'm doing and explaining about these beautiful fleeces. So I have saved the last one, and I thought we could just talk through that. Now, North Ronaldsay, if you're not familiar with those, is an island which is the most northern of the Orkney Isles, and it's where these very endangered, gorgeous little sheep come from. And what is so unique about these, I mean, they haven't changed since the Iron Age. And I think we absolutely have to celebrate that and just do everything we can to help to promote them still. There is absolutely still a place for these gorgeous little sheep. You may well have heard of them as the seaweed eating sheep because they are confined to the seashore for part of the year, and they have evolved to actually eat the seaweed because obviously there's no grass on the seashore, is there? And they come onto the spring grass ready for lambing season and get a bit of extra goodness from the grass. Mine aren't quite that lucky. They live in my field. They seem to be doing rather well. Now, I've had a bit of an emotional morning actually because, welling up, I had already sorted my fleeces very quickly at shearing time. So I had one bag that was my best and one bag that was not so good. Now, if you know anything about my particular flock of sheep, I keep all of my sheep forever, and some of them now are really quite aged. We're talking about 14 years old. And I know that they're not going to be here much longer. This may well be the last year that I can actually use their fleece, if indeed we still have some of them. So I have been really ruthless this morning, and I've gone through and I've sorted every single fleece, and I have made sure that I have retained some fleece from every single sheep. And I'm going to process all of it together. I'm not going to be very careful about it in terms of which sheep is which. I'm going to process all of it and have one project which will be my 2022 project from all of my remaining sheep. So what I thought we'd look at here, as you can see, this gorgeous fleece, this is actually, I know this fleece, this is from my little prize-winning ewe called Abigail. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about the properties in comparison with others. I'm just going to focus on the Ronaldsay. I'll obviously do another video at some point about other fleeces so that we can actually do a really good comparison. So if we look at our little book, The Field Guide to Fleece, really handy if you haven't seen this already, it tells us that the fleeces are small, as you can see. The average weight is 1 to 1.25 kilos, which isn't massive. Staple length 2 to 6 inches, and the fibre diameter is 23 to 28 microns. Now, that's pretty fine, but what we also have to consider first of all is, let's just talk about the fact that this is actually a double coated fleece. Now, if you're not familiar with that, that means if I just take out a little a staple from here, look, oh gosh, can you see my nails? I've just been dying woad, and I had gloves on. Those gloves obviously don't work, do they? Right, I'm just going to take let me just take a lock or two. Now, if you can see here, we've got a most definite longer coat on the outside, and if we can actually this is what obviously protects them from all the bad weather, that will actually just pull straight out, and what we're left with is this gorgeous long straight, almost hair-like fibre, as opposed to this short undercoat, which you can see is so soft and lofty and airy. It's just gorgeous, isn't it? By comparison, let me just come over to this side and I'll show you a couple here. Look, now this is from my gorgeous boy called Dylan. Look at the colour combinations here. Look, isn't that just amazing? So this is around his mane, so he's like, look at me girls, aren't I handsome? But it's just the most beautiful colour. And again, if we just separate that out, and you can do this with your combs, or you can just pull it out like that, and we keep that beautiful sort of auburn colour, just stunning. But then the cream underneath is just, it's beautifully clean, all separated. It's got a little bit of vegetable matter in there, but we know we're not going to worry too much about that today. And also on this black one, I mean, look at this, isn't that just amazing? So we've got some real variation just in one fleece. And what that means is you've got so many options. So because the fleece is quite small, we could just process it all together and just go with what we've got. Or we could choose to separate those locks like this, separate out the outer length, and we'd have a true worsted here, which we would actually, you'd comb that and spin that in a short forward draw to create a really sturdy drapey type of yarn. On the other hand, we then have our lovely little locks here, which you could card into rolags and long draw spin. You could flick that and spin from the lock. So it gives you so many possibilities, doesn't it? Which I think is absolutely amazing. So if I just move those to one side, let's have a look at the properties of this fleece particularly. Now, my first impressions is, let's work out which way round it is, shall we? And I think we have got a leg in each corner. And this is the neck end. This is the rear. And I have actually already taken off some little daggy ends off this end, obviously, which is the back end of the sheep. But it wasn't too bad, actually. These sheep, in the bathroom department, they actually keep themselves really clean. They're pretty good, actually. The problem I do have is here in the neck area. So the neck obviously is always the softest, usually always the softest part of the fleece. But it's also the one that they tend to get all of this vegetable matter in. Now, because these are my fleeces, I've got to make a decision as to what I want to do with them. And because this year these are really special fleeces, I'm not going to worry too much about that, I don't think. And as I said that, I'm hesitating. I might. I've got to make a decision. I need to either totally remove all of that area because it is a lot of vegetable matter. Oh, it's been bitten. On the other hand, I could save it because it is so soft, and I could just comb that out. And some small combs, little mini combs, would be fabulous to remove all of that vegetable matter, so you don't waste it. So you've got options here. Now, what I like about it is pretty uniform all the way around, except here in the middle. So obviously, if you think about this being on the sheep, this is down the spine, and very often that can become really quite compacted. And as it happens, I've got one here. This is not from my sheep, I hasten to add. This is one that I bought in from somebody else. Not a Ronaldsay, it's a Castle Milk Morrit. But actually, look at the gorgeous colour under there. I saved this because I thought it's actually a really good example of what we don't want. And can you see how it's just all completely matted? For whatever reason, whether that's just the weather, it's been on the sheep too long, all sorts of factors really. I would not be saving that for spinning. However, I think I can make like a little seat pad out of that. I could felt that on the back and still use it. So it's always usable, isn't it? It's just a case of what you want to do with it and how ruthless you want to be. So this centre area here, it actually looks quite cobwebby, doesn't it? If you see here, it looks like it's falling apart. That is fine, because that is actually completely the opposite to the one I just showed you. And that's how we want it to be. We want these fibres to be able to just move apart, making it easy for us to process. It's not matted. That's still lovely. So this area is actually finer. The legs and around the belly area, the sides and the rear end, they are fairly uniform. We've got some nice long locks here, but it's the outer coat that's the longest. So we've got, can you see how long that one is? And then what we've got left underneath, if we compare that, so that's from this more coarse end, if we compare that to a bit in the middle, and we'll see the differences. So we've got, yeah, I wish I could feel this, it's so lovely. In terms of how they feel, this is only slightly more coarse. I can just feel it a bit more on my fingers. This one is shorter, slightly softer, but it's not such a difference that I would actually be worried about that and feel I'd needed to separate it. I'm going to keep this whole, and I'm going to just process the whole thing. I'm not going to talk to you really about how we would scour this, how we'd wash it, but basically I should be dividing it into sections. I think I should divide it in half, and I should divide it in quarters, and that will give me a good manageable amount to be able to wash without damaging it as well. The other thing I wanted to show you, because as I just said, I just read to you out of the book that these are the general properties of this particular type of fleece. However, I've got 26 of these and everyone is different. We have some different bloodlines in there, which is going to affect the quality of the fleeces. We've also got different ages of sheep as well. We've got, my youngest is 5, our oldest is 14, so there's going to be variation. And one of the things that this little bit I wanted to keep. Now, if I was being really sensible, I would really be throwing this away, I think, but I'm not going to. This is from our very smallest sheep, Bella, and every year she has always had the shortest, tightest coat, but it makes the most gorgeous fleece. But you can see that up close. I don't know if you can see in here. Can you see the amount of crimp in here, which just shows just how soft that is, because obviously as a general rule the more crimp the finer the fibre. So although it's pretty tight on the ends, it's because these curls are so tight that it holds on to all of the dirt on the outside. But as you can see, if you come closer to this one, although we've got the top maybe ½ an inch or so, which is very greasy and dirty, but what's left underneath is really clean and gorgeous. So this really is worth putting in that effort, because it is, I mean, you can just see, I'm sure you can see just how incredibly soft that is, and that is going to be beautiful. The other thing I was going to show you is, if I just fold this little beauty up, and we'll have a look at a coloured fleece. Let's get that one up out of the way. Make sure I put it back in the right bag, in the one that's to be saved, not the one that isn't. If I can reach that one, can you throw that one over? Now this one is from one of my older boys called Bruno. Yeah, he did retain his brown colouring after I'd named him when he was a lamb. But you can see with this, it's much tighter on the back here. He's an old boy, it was a bit dry, and again I've got to make a decision here as to what I want to do with this one as well, but because he is so special, I think it's probably worth saving quite a bit of this. But what I did want to show you really in terms of the colour is how it changes. If you look underneath, it's really dark chocolatey brown, but obviously we can see also how the tips have been bleached by the sun, and that can make them a little brittle, and I'd have to I think I would remove most of those ends actually, and we're left with just that much bleaching on the end, which isn't too much, because one of the problems can be that if you have too much bleaching on the outside, it can dilute that gorgeous colour that you actually want underneath that you've already got. So again, it's about what do you want to do with it, how much effort are you willing to put in, and is it a special fleece to you really? And these are only decisions that we can make ourselves, aren't we, when we're faced with our fleeces. But I think, in case you haven't guessed already, Ronaldsay is probably my favourite fleece. They're my favourite little sheep, and I hope you've enjoyed listening a little bit about them. And if you have any questions or you have any comments to make, I'd love to hear from you. And if you've never used one, then I would urge you to contact a rare breed centre or the breeders in the UK and give it a go. You won't be sorry. Lovely. Thanks very much. See you soon. Bye.